Chapter 6. How we will win the best. We must never get away from the fact, even at the risk of repetition, that the life is the thing, that to fail or to fall down in it is the great failure. To fail in it is to fail completely, even though we may succeed, and even brilliantly, in some contingent or some accessory of it. So no man can become marooned in a one-sided development, or do a sharp practice, or live a dwarfing, self-centered life without definitely contributing to the failure of life. We can never afford to sacrifice, to chance, the future for the temporary or the apparent present gain. No man can afford, even for his own good, to do a crooked act or take a shortcut that is dishonest or dishonorable or questionable. The straight thing pays always in the end, in friendship, in business, in politics, in every conceivable avenue and phase of life. A reputation for strict integrity and reliability in business is one of the greatest assets that a businessman can have. There have been innumerable cases when it has been worth more than any amount of capital. The businessman who has been short-sighted enough at some time to have forfeited this element appreciates perhaps more than anyone else the cost that this forfeiting has been to him. The man who gives himself to questionable practices in politics, or who allies himself with bosses in their corrupt and corrupting political machines, realizes, many times after it is too late, that he has thereby set his own limitations. The young man entering politics who is long-headed enough to keep free from these alliances, and who makes the interests of the people his one concern, in other words, who has an eye to statesmanship instead of the business of the politician, will triumph. Other things being equal, always in the end over those who succumb to the flattery of the boss, or who cannot read sufficiently in advance the signs of the times. This is true even if the boss or the political machine seems to be all-powerful at the time. A study into the lives, the administrations and the conditions surrounding the administrations, as well as the eventuating power and standing of such men as former Governor Hughes of New York, Governor Woodrow Wilson of New Jersey, and various others of a similar type afford but a few of the many concrete examples of the way things work along these lines. To win the best in life, it is necessary that we have a definite type and manner of thought. It is necessary that we have some more or less definite plan and some manner of equipment for its accomplishment. It isn't necessary that we have all the details of the plan, nor even all the details of equipment, in order to make the start. Many of these can be gained along the way if we are in earnest. There are duties, there is work to be done, there are responsibilities, the same as there are joys in connection with all periods of life. Youth, middle age, and the later period in life, each has its own peculiar duties and responsibilities. The young man or young woman who is willing to pay the price in time, in effort, if necessary in money, for a good general education, and then for the special education along his or her particular field of activity, will generally be the gainer in the end. The young men and the young women with the college education, with the university training, even if they have to work their own way through to attain it, will unquestionably never repent having it. Although in the great majority of cases they will find that it isn't as much as they thought it was. To have this knowledge, however, is an advantage. There are those who believe that a college education would have been a detriment to a man, say, like Lincoln. I do not believe that it would have been a detriment to him, because he had too much good common sense and too much native ability to have allowed it to become a detriment, and to a man of this type, therefore, it would be an advantage. Some features of it would at least have been a satisfaction to him on account of his great thirst for learning and knowledge, though the chances are that it would not have made him any greater or any more effective in meeting the facts of life as he met them. So, I would say to the young man or woman, get the college education if you can, and there is scarcely one, at least in America, who if sufficiently in earnest cannot obtain it. If there are circumstances that prevent it, or that would seem to make it not advisable, then it depends entirely upon yourself as the years go by whether or not you sustain a loss by not having it. If the right stuff is in you, you will sustain no loss. Then when the middle life is reached, care must be taken that we do not allow the affairs of life and our own particular field of activity, with its many times complex relationships, ever to divorce us from living in the kingdom of the mind, in the realm of the imagination. If one has missed the early education, he need not be barred, unless perchance he himself so chooses, from that great and magnificent company of the world's thinkers and writers, companionship and intimacy with whom will make a man rich in thought, learnings, and even in culture. It depends upon ourselves entirely whether we have this royal companionship or not. It was Macaulay who said, "If anybody would make me the greatest king that ever lived, with palaces and gardens, and fine dinners, and wine and coaches, and beautiful clothes, and hundreds of servants, on condition that I would not read books. I would not be a king. I would rather be a poor man in a garret with plenty of books than a king who did not love reading. There arises also at this age a peculiar responsibility or duty, which might be termed the duty of preserving oneself. To grow and to keep in person as attractive as possible should be not only everyone's pleasure, but should be also everyone's duty. Household cares, or business cares and preoccupation, or lack of appreciation of its sure value, cause many to grow careless along this line, especially at this period of life. As the life at 45 and 50 has been determined by the prevailing types of thought, and therefore the habits of 25 and 35. So the latter years of life are being determined with an absolute precision by the prevailing types of thought and consequent mode of life of the middle age. There is an especial duty at middle age to sow the right seed thoughts that will make the latter period of life as beautiful and as attractive as it can be made. To keep always a youthful interest in all things of life, and an interest in all things in the lives of all about us, leads in an easy and natural manner to that delightful old age that should be the ambition and the pride of all who are permitted to pass into it. When we examine the matter carefully, and when we realize that all knowledge and growth and development and character are cumulative, it would seem that the latter years of life should be the most joyous and valuable and happy of all. Its joys and its valued possessions come undoubtedly through living always in the upper strata of one's being. Browning was unquestionably the prophet when he wrote, "Grow old along with me. The best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made. Our times are in his hand who said, a whole I planned. Youth shows but half. Trust God. See all, nor be afraid." The condition of a very large army of people is accurately described by Brooke Herford when he says, "There are some people who ride all through the journey of life with their backs to the horses. They are always looking into the past. All the worth of things is there. They are forever talking about the good old times and how different things were when they were young. There is no romance in the world now, and no heroism. The very winters and summers are nothing to what they used to be. In fact, life is altogether on a small, commonplace scale. Now that is a miserable sort of thing. It brings a kind of paralyzing chill over the life, and petrifies the natural spring of joy that should be ever leaping up to meet the fresh new mercies that the days keep bringing. Life, in no case, is purely a bed of roses. There will be always the daily problems. There will be bread to get. Or if it is not a bread problem, then there will be wisdom necessary, and perplexing problems to meet in the wise use of one's wealth. There will be disillusions. There will be suffering. There will be death. But the great beauty is that those who are in earnest and those who build on the great realities of life, for them there will be a wisdom that will enable them to meet all these things with understanding and power, and always, therefore, with a due compensation. It was Henry Drummond who said, "Sooner or later we find out that life is not a holiday, but discipline. Earlier or later we all discover that the world is not a playground. It is quite clear God means it for a school. The moment we forget that the puzzle of life begins." He was right, but we may be as happy as we can be while the school keeps. There will be work always to do, but Ruskin lifts a curtain when he says, "Pleasure comes through toil and not by self-indulgence and indolence." When one gets to love work, his life is a happy one. Happiness is the natural and the normal. It is one of the concomitants of righteousness. Righteousness in its last analysis is living in right relations with the laws of the universe and with the laws of our own being. If we are making even a decent effort to know and to observe these laws, happiness in the main will be our portion. We will, then, inoculate our minds with the germs of happiness. It is just as easy, when we get the habit, as to inoculate them with the germs of fear or worry or cynicism or discontent, and the results are better in every way. We will not think of those things that are unpleasant. Why do so? It will do us no good in any way. Why, therefore, cripple our thought and thereby our energies when there is no reason for it, no good to be gained? We will take the winning attitude of mind, for as we think, we become. There is joy and happiness to be found in so many things all about us. Why let the incidental happenings steal them from us? The world is so filled with pleasant things if we will only get and keep on the right track. No clear-thinking or clear-seeing man or woman can be an apostle of despair. No life at whatever age, or under whatever circumstances, can fail to do wisely in realizing that the glories of the sunrise or the sunset colors are just as brilliant and just as beautiful for them as they have ever been. We cannot fail if we live always in the brave and cheerful attitude of mind. He alone fails who gives up and lies down. To get up each morning with the resolve to be happy, to take anew this attitude of mind whenever the dark or doleful thought presents itself, or whenever the bogeyman stalks into our room or across our path when we are out on God's broad highway, is to set our own conditions to the events of each day. To do this is to condition circumstances instead of being conditioned by them. Things that we can't help, we can either accept with good grace or quickly forget. It is no use to grumble and complain. It's just as cheap and easy to rejoice. When God sorts out the weather and sends rain, why? Rain's my choice. So sang James Wickham Riley, and into the brief song he packed practically half the philosophy of life. Someone has said, there are two things in this life for which we are never fully prepared, and they are twins. But the philosophical mother or father or aunt or grandmother is the one who is happy even when they come. Cheerfulness and content, said Dickens, are great beautifiers and are great preservers of youthful looks. It is true in a double sense that twins, as by and by they grow to the state of manhood or womanhood, will take a special pride in parents that, if not always the pink of perfection and beauty, are noted for their youthful looks. Generally speaking, it is idle for one to think that he would be happier in some other state or condition. It is, however, true that we need changes. We need changes from the ordinary duties and routine of life that we may get away from the beaten path, or sometimes, if you please, out of the ruts that we are all so likely to get running in. It is good for us occasionally to get away from our constant companions, our constant friends, from the members of our immediate households. It is good for us, and it is good for them. It whets the dull edge of appetite. We come back revived, with fresh and many times new interests and aims. We appreciate them better, and they appreciate us better for these changes. It takes the cobwebs from our brains. It takes the kinks from our nerves, and many times thereby from our acts. The occasional vacation, or trip, or travel, or even short absence, does, in this way, contribute to a greater happiness. But we must take the spirit of happiness with us, for unless we do, we will find it nowhere in the world, however far or varied we may travel in search for it. After all, says Lowell, the kind of world one carries about within oneself is the important thing, and the world outside takes all its grace, color, and value from that. Life is not so complex if we do not persist in making it so. We need faith. We need to be brave. We need chronically to keep the corners of the mouth turned up and not down. And after all, it is only a step at a time. Anyone, someone has said, can carry his burden, however heavy, till nightfall. Anyone can do his work, however hard, for one day. Anyone can live sweetly, patiently, lovingly, purely, till the sun goes down, and this is all that life ever really means. And then each morning is a fresh beginning. The way we meet our problems and do our work today determines all, and then tomorrow when it comes, but not before it comes. This is really the secret of all successful living. And as the days and the years speed onward, abundant help will spring up all along the way to meet whatever conditions or problems arise. They will be waiting and ready to help us to meet them with wisdom and with power, and to get from them the best there is in them. And when the summons comes to join the innumerable company, it will find us ready. Joyfully we will slip out of the old coat and eagerly put on the new. We will not be afraid or even reluctant, realizing that we are now living in God's life, and that there we shall live forever. We will therefore extend a welcoming hand to the messenger, knowing that he can bring us only good. We will go even with joy, expecting that Swedenborg was right, when he taught that those who have been nearest in spirit and therefore dearest to us here are the divinely appointed ones to greet and to care for us and to instruct us when we pass into the other phase of life. Happy and strong and conquering always to the end is he who knows the grasp of the unseen hand. He it is who all along on God's highway has the equipment for the winning of the best. End of chapter. End of book.